would have been a 7 or 8 hour trip for the 16-year-old Tariq, through treacherous terrain, through potential Taliban hotspots, and of course under drone surveillance.
It was the first time that the international media, the drone victims, the tribal elders, and the general public came together. It was held in a 5-star hotel. The tribal elders spoke in terms of political implications, how they felt, and the drone victims spoke about personal stories.
These drones attack us and the whole world is silent.
I raise my voice to take a stand.
You press a button and annihilate entire families and tribes there.
This is a part of the drone missile that was used to kill that child.
It was a gathering to get the voice of the victims of drone attacks out to the general public as well as the rest of the world.
And that was the main goal. We were going to use the media to try and establish who had been killed and also why, where and how.
Well, because of the inaccessibility of Waziristan, it's very, very hard to compile any kind of credible evidence or evidence that other people will see as credible. That was part of the reason we organised this conference in Islamabad.
We called it a jirga.
A jirga is a traditional tribal gathering.
That's what people in that area use to settle their disputes.
This is simply indiscriminate bombing. There are so many women and children killed.
At one stage I came across a young boy, Tariq Aziz. When I was talking to Tariq, one of the first things that he did was he handed me his cousin's student ID card. And as I looked at it, I looked back at Tariq and I noticed that he was crying. He started to tell me the story of his cousin who had been killed from a drone strike. He'd come to the jirga primarily to inform us a little bit more about what had happened to his cousin, to people in his local village, and find out how to stop the killing. And we sat together all day, we ate together at lunchtime, we laughed together, we became friends. Tariq was extremely intelligent and funny to be around. He had a nice sense of humour. He was fascinated by photography and intrigued by Western music, mentioning artists, and one that sprang to mind was Lady Gaga. He started to talk about drone strikes in his village, how he was unable to sleep at night. He was scared, he was worried about his family, his friends. Tariq was traumatized.
He wanted to talk about how he was affected by drone attacks and basically to give the message that the people of Waziristan want justice against the killings of innocent civilians under drone attacks that are operated by the US.
I've been to Waziristan and have taken pictures and collected evidence that neither the CIA nor the American government can disprove. But the most painful story that I have come across was of the children. The brother was killed in a drone strike, but what they didn't know was their parents were also killed.
And the people who were gathered there adopted a resolution condemning the strikes. The outcome of the jirga was a big success because it allowed people to come together, listen to stories, and come to a common resolution. Then we went together to a rally, and Tariq Aziz traveled there with us.
We travelled towards the rally, and Tariq sat next to me. He seemed relaxed. He was laughing with his friends. Tariq and everybody else got out, and they went to the rally.
Thousands of Pakistanis came to support a giant rally on Sunday.
The protest against the United States drone attacks in Pakistan.
The drones are violating the people of Pakistan as well as their human rights.
People from all over the country, irrespective of their ages and backgrounds, came together to the rally.
We want to send a message to America. The more drone attacks you conduct, the more people will resent you.
After that, Tariq Aziz and the other attendees returned to their homes.
He said the rally in Islamabad was huge and that it would help our voices get heard.
We were preparing for the soccer match the next day. We told Tariq to pick up extra players for our game. Tariq left to tell some players, and we left to tell others. We were listening to music in the car. Tariq's brother was with me.
The car was completely destroyed, and the bodies of Tariq and his cousin were badly burned.
We took their bodies out and put them into our car.
When I saw Tariq's body, I became very upset and disturbed. Other people took me away because I became faint.
It was deeply disturbing to see the dead bodies of our friends and relatives.
Two days later, I got a call.
When the attack took place, I was in school in Banya.
You know, I heard about Tariq a few days later after I'd gone back to England.
We were at prayer when we found out.
I got an email.
I was at work when we found out.
We got an email and a telephone call.
4 days after the Jirga, I received an email from Shahzad. The email simply said Tariq as the heading, and I opened it instantly. To my shock, I found out that Tariq had been murdered by a drone strike.
And that was a shock. I was like, how is it possible? Where was he? What was he doing? And it's like completely unbelievable.
He was just an innocent student. He was my student.
They say that Tariq has been killed. I could not believe it.
My initial thoughts were, this wasn't happening, this was just a dream.
We didn't think that Tariq, the 16-year-old kid who wanted to talk about football, would be killed in a drone attack the same week that we'd met him.
This tragic story of Tariq Aziz, shortly after attending a conference on the very issue of drones, then being killed. Could you talk about the news, the impact of that, and also a little bit more about Tariq's and his life?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was devastating for everyone involved. As it was mentioned in the clip, Reprieve had helped organize a Jirga, which is a traditional kind of dispute resolution mechanism in the tribal areas. And our idea was, we can't go to the tribal areas, so let's bring the elders to Islamabad and have them discuss the issue. It was extremely well publicized. Everyone in Islamabad knew what was going on. It was receiving international press as well. And so the idea that the U.S. could have not known this person was at this hotel, which was, you know, mere blocks from the embassy, is unbelievable. And as you saw in the clip, many people spent time talking with him. Many people spent time getting to know him. And then, to our dismay, 3 days later, he's dead in a U.S. drone strike along with his cousin.
And he was in Islamabad at this drone conference to talk about his friends who had been killed.
Exactly. He was there talking about his cousin, his other family members he knew, his friends, the impact of the drones. He had accompanied a local elder to the event, and so was not part of the discussions per se, but an observer there. He was like any other 16-year-old boy you might know here. He talked to people about his love of cricket and his love of football and his hopes and dreams for the future. Those hopes and dreams nobody could have imagined would be cut short so quickly.
Has the U.S. acknowledged why they killed him and that they killed him?
No, they haven't acknowledged why they've killed them. They've not acknowledged why they've killed anyone in the U.S. drone strike program. So until recently, they denied the program even existed. We've now reached a point where the administration's acknowledging the program as existing, but still refusing to acknowledge the criteria for who's being killed, naming who is being killed, or even dealing with the follow-up investigations when there are these claims of, civilian casualties. There's just no response out of the administration.
And what was the reaction of the Pakistani government after his killing?
The Pakistani government also gave no response to the family about the killing. In the case of the Rahman family, which has come a couple of years later, there was an acknowledgement that it was a U.S. drone strike. They did write a letter back saying, we've investigated, it was a U.S. drone strike. Mamana Bibi did die. The 8 children were injured, but it's not our problem. We didn't fire the drone.
Who said that?
The Pakistani government.
And the Pakistani government did not say who fired the drone?
They did. They acknowledged that it was a U.S. drone.
And the U.S. government?
And the U.S. government has said nothing.
Robert Greenwald, talk about the making of Unmanned.
It began really when I went to Pakistan and interviewed person after person, including the family that was at the briefing yesterday. And it was profoundly moving, it was profoundly upsetting, and it was profoundly infuriating. And I made a decision when I was there filming, interviewing, investigating, after I saw the family. You know, I have 3 daughters myself, so sitting with the family, seeing the daughters, I immediately felt a strong connection. And I said, not only would we tell their story in the film, but if we could bring them to the United States, how powerful that would be, so people could see real living and breathing human beings who are paying this extraordinary price for this policy of ours that's morally wrong and is not making us safer.
And this whole issue, especially in Pakistan, unlike Afghanistan or Iraq, where the United States doesn't even acknowledge the actions it's taken or any responsibility or accountability for it. At least in Afghanistan or Iraq, there's some sort of compensation to civilians who were killed as a result of being collateral damage, as far as the United States is concerned, of these attacks. Your sense of the reaction in Congress as you put together the film and as you attempted to have a hearing there about this issue?
Well, the reaction was very strong. It was a very emotional hearing or briefing yesterday. Generally, they're pretty boring and, boilerplate, but people were moved. There were tears flowing. And I think the Congress people, the staffers, and thanks to many in the media, are now more and more aware that this is a policy that you can't hide behind classified information. It makes no sense. So what the CIA says is, oh, you're wrong in your film. You're wrong about that strike. We know the real information. Oh, but we're not going to give it to you, by the way.
Code Pink, Medea Benjamin and Pam Bailey wrote a very interesting piece, headlined, $40 million allocated for drone victims never reaches them. Can you explain what this $40 million fund is of the U.S. government? Jen?
I'm not sure anyone can. And that was the point of what Code Pink recently released. What they discovered was that all of these calls for compensation, that actually there had been $10 million every year for the past 4 years earmarked, and I believe it was the Foreign Affairs budget, for paying compensation to civilian victims of drone strikes in Pakistan, and that instead this money was going to NGOs and other development programming and not to civilian victims of drone strikes. If that is the case, which...
Because CIA is not acknowledging they're engaged in drone strikes.
CIA is not acknowledging, nobody in Pakistan is acknowledging that they're carrying out drone strikes. So when you see the news reports, like this morning's news report, the U.S. never comments. It's always an anonymous official.
News report saying there was yet another drone strike.
There was yet another strike. It's never the U.S. commenting. It's never an on-the-record official. It's always an anonymous source from the Pakistani intelligence, an anonymous source from American intelligence, an anonymous source from the administration. And these anonymous sources just say, yes, militants are killed.
The new report of the Pakistani government trying to downplay the number of civilian casualties. Any coincidence of the fact that this hearing in Congress was happening this week?
That's a question for the Pakistani government. What is shocking about the numbers is it contradicts everything they've been saying for the past almost 2 years now. They gave figures to the Peshawar High Court in litigation we were involved in at the end of last year, where they cite a much, much higher number of civilian casualties. They gave most recently in March new numbers to the UN Special Rapporteur for Counterterrorism and Human Rights, Ben Emerson. They told him there were at least 400 civilian casualties. So
we just had Ben Emerson on the show. Now he is saying he needs Pakistan to explain why these numbers have gone down. Of course, it's right after Nawaz Sharif met with President Obama in Washington.
Exactly. It's right after he met with Nawaz Sharif. It's right after Nawaz Sharif reportedly told him to stop the drone strikes. And these revision of numbers also coincidentally make them much closer to the CIA numbers and claims of civilian casualties as well.
Let's go to another clip from your film, Robert Greenwald, Unmanned, America's Drone Wars, about the attack on a tribal meeting, which is known as a jirga. It was held in Dadakil, Pakistan, in March of 2011. You hear voices of witnesses, family members of those killed. You'll also hear James Cavallaro, Stanford Law School professor, and Akbar Ahmed, former Pakistani ambassador to Britain. But first, tribal elder Ahmed Jan explains what happened that day.
There
were more than 40 people. We were talking about chromite and the cutting of wood from the mountains. I was sitting on the ground.
They held the jirga in an open space in a bus depot in broad daylight. Tribal elders informed the Pakistani military.
Brigadier Dogar was in command of the brigade on the border, so he is a key commander. The brigadier knew about the jirga 10 days in advance. His own army camp was 10 kilometers from the site of the jirga.
So this was an open public event that pretty much everyone in the community and surrounding area knew about. So the jirga begins in the morning at about 10 o'clock, and after about 20 minutes or so,
Four missiles attacked us at 10:45 a.m. on March 17, 2011. Two missiles targeted the group where I was sitting, while two more targeted the other group.
There's smoke and debris and chaos.
It was huge explosions. So people in the shop, in the nearby areas, they rushed to the place.
When the attack took place, it became hell for us.
I rushed there and found pieces of dead bodies all around.
Some had no head, some had no hands, some had no feet. They were all dead.
Everyone was crying and screaming, asking why do these drones attack and kill our people?
When we got there, they said there were countless casualties. All I saw were body parts and charred clothes.
When I got there, someone showed me my father. When I touched his skin, it started to break like ashes.
That was another clip from Unmanned, America's Drone Wars, Robert Greenwald. If you could comment on that particular segment we just heard.
Well, what we saw was a segment about something called signature strikes. What they are literally are guesses about what people are doing based on their behavior, not who they are, not what they've done, not that we have any information about them. So literally some bureaucrat someplace is guessing that they might one day possibly do bad things and people are being killed. This was the leadership of that community, 45 people decimated. Again, based on no hard information, no judge, no jury, no trial. Even if people are in favor of drone strikes, signature strikes are beyond outrageous, and there can be legislative solutions to that, and I hope there will be.
And of course, the signature strikes also create a direct line to the president, don't they, in terms of his having to approve them?
Well, the president approves the so-called kill list, which is the individuals. With the signature strikes, which supposedly they're moving away from, it's not really clear who approves or decides that. What we understand is it's the CIA who now believes they are so wise they can see thousands of miles away people sitting in a circle with guns. Oh yes, they must be bad guys. Let's kill them.
Before we move on to our final story and our guests who've come from Pakistan, who survived a drone attack, Jennifer Gibson, they were supposed to come to the United States with their lawyer. Instead, their lawyer was denied a visa, and you had to fly from Britain to Islamabad to pick them up, though you don't speak Pashto, to come back here. Explain what's happening with people trying to speak out around drones. What happened to the lawyer?
Well, Shahzad is an amazing individual who should be here today. He's been working and investigating on drones for 3 years now, more than 3 years. He has amazing connections with the communities involved. And he, ever since he started working on this issue, has been unable to get a visa to come to the U.S. The last time he applied, and it should be noted he used to come all the time before without any problem. So the last time he tried to come, it took more than 14 months of administrative processing for the U.S. to finally grant a visa. This time, once again, he applied in August. He went for the interview, and he was told, "You have a history with us. We can't grant it. It needs to go through D.C." And so since then, he hasn't been able to get an answer. His application just consistently says it's in administrative processing.
And of course, Shahzad Akbar is featured in your film. And you are making it available for free, Robert Greenwald, online?
Yes, we fortunately have a wonderful donor who wants thousands and thousands of people to see it. At americasdronewars.com, we encourage people to sign up, see it, but then most importantly, get other people to see it, people who don't care, who don't have information, or are even in favor of drone strikes. That's the wonder of the tool and the wonder of being able to offer it this way.
And the hearing in Congress that you were instrumental in helping put together, only 5 members of Congress attended?
Right. We're told by Congressman Grayson and Jen Schakowsky, who were there, that that's actually a good number for Congress. I, of course, was disappointed and hoping for hundreds, but they did show up, and I think they were affected, and we hope it will be the beginning of momentum.